Okay, so we've got honestly the majority of our game stuff working, but we're gonna make a few improvements before we get done with this course. And the first thing we're gonna do is instead of hard coding this array of questions in here, we're gonna actually put them in a JSON file. So we're gonna open up a file called questions.json, and we will take the questions in here and actually I'm going to copy and paste it in there because a little bit of formatting you have to do. So inside of questions.json file, you'll have your array, and then it looks almost exactly the same except for these keys and the key value pairs need to be in quotes also. So if you do a copy and paste into this questions.json file, you'll need to make sure that your keys are in quotes. If you don't, it'll give you errors in VS Code. So make sure those are set that way. Otherwise, you can just grab them from the course content and just copy this file into your application. So instead of getting our questions this way, we're going to get rid of that hard-coded set of questions, and we're going to use the fetch API to go out and fetch these questions. So the way this is going to look is we're going to start with an empty array of questions. We're going to use the fetch function, and we're going to fetch questions.json. So in the next video, we're actually going to use fetch to pull questions from an API. This is pulling from a local file, but it works the exact same way. So we're going to fetch questions from there. This returns a promise, so then we can call .then, and we're going to get a response in the .then. Now the response that it returns is probably not exactly what you would expect. So I'm going to log this out, and we'll come over to play here, and open up our console. I don't know why that, oh, I do know why. So that just skipped right over our application because we have an empty array of questions, and as you know, when we run out of questions, it goes to the end screen. So we'll come back to that. But I can leave my logs. How do I do that? Preserve log, and then go to play again. Now, even though it navigated away, it can show me what it logged out. So this is basically like an HTTP response, and really what we want out of that is a JSON version of the data. So inside of a promise, you can return a promise. So response, or excuse, this should actually be just res. So res.json will get out of this HTTP response, it'll get the body and convert it into JSON. And so we can return that inside of this promise. And because of that, then we can do a .then on that, and we can say this is the loaded questions. And then I can console log loaded questions. And this should be the actual JSON part that we want. So let's do play again. And see, in promise loaded questions is not defined. Loaded questions. Typing is one of the most important things you can do as a programmer. So let's go play again, and we should see our questions are actually being loaded. I'm not going to show them to me from that array, which is fine. So from here, what I want to happen is instead of calling start game immediately, I want to wait to call start game until I've got my questions back. So I'll call start game there, and I'll say my questions I'll get from the questions that I just loaded. All right, so if I save this, we should be able to go back to play again, see our questions are being loaded here, and be able to answer and play our game just like we thought. So let's just finish out. We'll get a score of 0. Because of that, we might want to play again. Now, one thing to notice is, and we'll fix this in a couple of videos from now, is when we load this screen, you see that dummy text pop up before you see your actual real question being prompted. So eventually we're going to add a loader to help make that look a little bit better. But for now, this is what we're going to do. So just best practice here, when you do make a request with fetch and with other things that return promises, you also want to handle the catch, which is the error scenario. So in here, if I was to type in the wrong path to the file, it's going to trigger this error, and I could error out that error message to the console. So if I look at my console, this is going to say unexpected token. So it failed to parse JSON because that's not real JSON, because that's not a real file. And it threw an error, and then I just logged it out to the console. So this is typically something you'll want to do. We don't really have any fancy error cases here. You might flash up a message that says like fail to load questions, go back to the home screen and try again. Or you might give the user a button to try to refresh the questions or something like that. It doesn't really matter. But just know in general, when you make these type of requests or make anything that returns a promise, you want to handle that catch case too, so that if something goes wrong, you know what to do. But with this being typed in correctly, it should work just as we expect. All right, so it looks really good. So I'm pretty happy with this. I just wanted to kind of show you guys, one, get a primer for fetch, and then show you it's a little bit cleaner to say those questions inside of another file instead of inside of this file. And then go ahead and pull it in with fetch. So in the next one, we're actually going to use the OpenTriviaDB API, which gives us a public way to get questions that people have already submitted. And it's got 3,200 verified questions. And we can go and grab those so that we don't have to write our own. And we can use those for our users. So that's what we're going to do in the next video. I'm excited about it. I hope you guys are too. And I'll see you there.